Hello book lovers, my name is Carrie and this is Spines and Spoilers. So it's been a while and that is entirely on me. I've started to discover that I feel most like reading in the fall and the winter. That results in things just kind of petering out around the spring and the summer. And part of that is because I think I subconsciously kind of impose the idea upon myself that since it's, spring or summer, I have to read springy, summery things. And I think I might stop that now. I don't know. I'm not going to completely censor what I read, make it so I can only read one type of book. But I'm also not going to limit myself to that extent with spring and summer either. I want to be open to all books at all times of the year. That being said, I do have a lot of books lined up for October that are pretty, spoopy. But it has a special place in my heart, so it gets passed. Today, however, we are talking about the 7 books that I was actually able to read in September after not reading anything since March or something, February or March. I ended up in a long, just dry stint. I kept on picking up books, not able to finish them. It was a really long, dry period. I think I read maybe 2 books during that period. That was Eragon and Eldest, and both of them were rereads. Also, as I'm sure you noticed, my setup is very different today. I'm at my parents' place. Originally, I was supposed to be house-sitting while they went to the beach, but that ended up not happening, so I'm kind of just here visiting, and they're off doing some errands, basically. So I figured that I'd take advantage of the little bit of time in between and go ahead and try to film something, since I've kind of felt that urge coming back on lately and have actually been sort of preparing things again. I think for this next year I'm going to be more mindful of my own limitations, though. Also, I am so sorry for the shaking and the bad angles and all that. There is nowhere that I can put this where it will be able to sit still at the moment, I don't think. I can try different angles, I guess, but I don't think there's much anywhere that I can put it where it can just sit. That being said, let's get into my September reading wrap-up. Okay, we're going to try this angle for a little bit and see how much I hate it. One thing that I forgot to do that I usually do at the beginning of videos is telling you about what book I'm reading and what I'm drinking. At the moment, I am reading Dream Thieves, which is the sequel to The Raven Boys. It is the second in the series, I think, of 4 books. And so far, so good. I really enjoyed the first one, and I'm enjoying this one a little bit more so far. I'm still deciding if I love or hate this angle. So, also drinking some coffee. On to the actual books that I read in September. There were 2 horror books-ish, 1 YA, 2 middle grade, I believe, and then 2 for children. That's just what my brain has felt like lately. It hasn't really felt like super serious stuff, with the exception of a couple of books. But the first book on the list that I actually finished, which makes sense because I had been looking forward to this book for so long, is What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. I don't know why I'm holding my hand up over here. It's gonna be somewhere. But yes, it is basically a retelling of The House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. I didn't know that going into this book, and I was so pleasantly surprised. I kind of avoided spoilers and didn't look too much into what it was about, and never made the connection that that was what this was. But it's done in such a wonderful way. It's so creepy. It has so many just really genuinely eerie moments that can make you really uncomfortable. You're never outright terrified, but it makes you feel very unsettled, or at least it did for me anyway. At any rate, I really loved this book. I think I gave it a 4.5. I love T. Kingfisher's work in general. I think she's a wonderful author. And I look forward to reading whatever she comes out with next. Not gonna lie, I'm starting to hate this angle a little bit. But the next book that I read in September was the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. I'm also a big fan of Grady Hendrix, generally a big fan of their work. They kind of have some hit and misses, which is fine. But this one, I think was my favorite so far. I don't know, like, maybe I say that about all of their books, but genuinely speaking, I really loved this book. I thought it had a lot to say about abuse and gaslighting and just how women are treated, you know, how mothers are treated in general. And there was also a lot of racial commentary about how the struggle of people of color is usually just completely overshadowed and ignored. But yeah, I thought it had a lot to say, more than I would have expected. I'm not going to pretend that it's some like life-altering thing, but I did find it truly interesting. I thought it was a nice spin on the usual tropes. I think it ended up being around the 4-star range as well, probably somewhere around there. I'm not positive. 4.5. I really liked it. I'm not going to say that it's a new favorite, so maybe like a 4. What Moves the Dead is definitely a new favorite, so it'd be like a 4.5 or a 5, and then Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, not so much. I almost killed my tablet. Anyway, the next book is a middle grade book, I believe. It's called Witch Boy. Who's the author? I forget. Molly Knox Ostertag. Pardon me, I should have looked that up before starting the video. But at any rate, it was a very cute book. It was very sweet. It is about a little boy who has magical powers, or is born into a family that has magical powers. His is supposed to be one power. The women of the family are supposed to have another power. And he does not connect to the power that the men of the family have. I thought that there were a lot of similarities to Cemetery Boys. I'm not quite sure which came first. I'm very curious to see. But there are a lot of similarities. Cemetery Boys is much longer, though. There are romantic components, and each of them had different things to say, so I'm going to let it slide. Either way, I thought it was a very sweet book. I thought it was a good read for people who are middle grade, you know, maybe a little older, younger, or, you know, if you're like a 32-year-old aged woman who just wants something that's like slightly fluffy but spooky at the same time. I don't know. Either way, it was very cute. I would recommend it. That being said, I don't know what rating I would give it. I guess like a 3.5 or a 4. Because it was good, but it wasn't earth-shattering. I'm probably not going to be talking to anyone and suddenly be like, oh, you know what you should read? The Witch Boy. Not that there's anything wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it at all. Necessarily. It's not my favorite, and yeah, I don't know how many people I'm going to recommend it to. It is very cute, though, and if you do have, you know, kids who are middle grade, then maybe something to look into this holiday. I don't know. The next book on my list, however, I would honestly recommend. It's absolutely adorable. It's called The Tea Dragon Society by Kay O'Neill. It's part of a series, but it honestly works alone, like works as a standalone book, rather. It's absolutely adorable. I love the illustrations from start to finish. They're absolutely gorgeous, and it's such a sweet premise. I should have mentioned that it is a graphic novel, but there's nothing wrong with that at all. It had just like dense, lush illustrations that you could feel coming off the page, honestly. The illustrator should be commended. I don't know if Kay O'Neill did her own work or not. I actually don't see anything about that. I'm gonna have to look that up, I think. But at any rate, it's basically about a little girl finding a dragon, or a tea dragon, excuse me, in the market, finding their owner, and wanting to learn about the art of taking care of tea dragons. And it's just this super sweet, wholesome, emotional story, basically. I mean, there are a lot of things to love about it, honestly. It's, you know, it's got a lot of queer representation, well, I don't know a lot. But it's got queer representation. There are dragons. I mean, who does not love dragons? It's a graphic novel, and it's got a very diverse cast of characters that all have very distinct personalities, and I kind of love them all. If I had to rate it, though, it would probably be around a 4-star. I don't know. The rating system is just so mixed up. I think I need to, like, look more into that, into creating more of my own, like, rating system. I have no idea. The next book on my list was one that I had been looking forward to for a while, but I could never really find a copy of, and that is The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. I adore Neil Gaiman. I don't think I've ever read anything by Neil Gaiman that I do not adore, honestly. There are a lot of good authors on this list so far, but yeah, I absolutely love his work. Adored American Gods and Nazi Boys, Coraline, Graveyard Book, just all that stuff. Absolutely loved it. If you haven't read anything by Neil Gaiman, definitely pick something out. He's got a lot of middle grade stuff. He has stuff for kids. If you want to start with something like short and easy to read, just to see his vibe, and then like he goes all the way up to like American Gods, which is a thick boy, and is much more serious and dark in tone, but just absolutely wonderful. 100% would recommend like all of his work, honestly. And the same can be said for this book as well, honestly. I didn't expect it to be as eerie as it was, and there were parts that genuinely like made me uncomfortable. I don't usually squirm when I read books or listen to books or whatever I end up doing. This was an audiobook, but there was one part where I had to pause it and just like, because it's I'm not going to spoil it, partially because it might disturb some people on here, but if you have issues with things like being pulled out of people's bodies that shouldn't be there, maybe skip it. I don't know. Either way, it was just like, for me, no, no. Rest of the book was great. Again, it was tense. It was surprisingly disturbing and eerie, suspenseful, and I really enjoyed it, honestly. Like, I don't know what else to say. It's probably another 4.5 for me because, you know, I love Neil Gaiman, and, like, everything he touches is gold, basically. This next book is another middle grade. I actually skipped over this one, I think. I'm pretty sure I didn't include it in the initial count, so there are 8 books that I read in September. But this one is Mooncakes. It is a middle grade graphic novel. It is so sweet. And there is, you know, gay representation, non-binary representation, you know, it's got a diverse cast. I love the main character's family. She has 2 aunts, or aunts? I think they're aunts. I can't remember. I'm gonna have to reread it. A lot of it has like a practical magic feel, which I absolutely love, especially around this time of year. This book scratched every itch that I had in my brain. This was actually the first book that got me back into reading, now that I'm thinking about it. I saw it, it looked adorable, it looked like what I was kind of in the mood for. It's just like deliciously atmospheric, you know, for this time of year, and was really great to put me back in that mindset. And then that's when I went on to read What Moves the Dead, which I was just really excited to find a copy of. I'm really happy that I stumbled across this, though, because I didn't know that it existed at all, and was just poking around on my Kindle and stumbled across it, and it looked adorable, and I read it, and I loved it. And it's, I don't know, I hate to give so many books 4.5s and 5s, but it's probably up there too, because I love it, and I fully plan on, like, showing it to my stepdaughter, and, like, recommending it to as many people as I can who would actually enjoy this type of book. So yeah, if you want something that's just, like, low-key, that'll get you in, you know, that mindset, that fall atmosphere, I mean, definitely go for this one. It's sweet, it's a little bit spooky, totally recommend it. I'm actually a little iffy on what the next book would be categorized as. It would be somewhere between children's and middle grade, because I've heard of people from both of those age groups like reading this. But I reread Bunnicula by Deborah Howe and James Howe, and there is an illustrator named Alan Daniel. And it was just as good as I remembered, honestly. This was one of my favorite books in like elementary school, so I guess it's an elementary book, I don't know. I read it when I was very young though. I adored it. It's probably one of the things that helped me get into horror in the first place. I'm honestly not sure. I just know that I've always kind of liked horror a little bit. But at any rate, it's a really cute book. This family gets a new bunny, like they find a bunny and adopt it, and their dog is very suspicious of this bunny and thinks it might be a vampire for reasons. But it's a very cute book, just as good as I remembered. 4-ish stars? Yeah, we'll say 4 stars. Yeah, because it's definitely one that I would recommend for people, like kids who are this age, but it's not like in my favorites of all time or anything like that. So it's like solid 4-star range. The last book that I read in September was The Only Disappointment, actually, which is great. It's One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. This book was so hyped up, and I was pretty enthusiastic, thought it was going to be so good. It was described as Breakfast Club meets horror, kind of. And I'm not going to say that it was terrible. It wasn't. I just expected more, you know? And I just felt like some of it was, like, contrived a little bit. See, I hate talking bad about books, because I know, like, that this is this author's work, and that they have done more than I will ever be able to do. I don't think I'll ever be able to write a book. It takes so much, and I commend Karen M. McManus for being able to do what she did. It is still a fine book. It is good, I would even say. It is not a bad book by any measure of the word. It just was not earth-shattering. It's not one of my new favorites. I can't say that I'll necessarily recommend it to anyone. It was just kind of, it was fine, you know? It's fine to good. Like, some of it was pretty good, and then some of it was just fine. I don't know, there were some parts of it that I liked more than others. But that's actually it for my September wrap-up, reading wrap-up. I hope that's what I've been saying. I haven't been saying TBR, have I? At any rate, that's it. It was actually a really good reading month, considering the fact that I hadn't read anything for several months. So, at any rate, I hope that you guys are doing really well. I hope that you're staying safe, doing lots of reading, and I'm glad to be back. You have no idea how many times I picked up the phone meaning to record something, or I would start to and not be able to finish it, or I would record it and just not like it. So it's refreshing to be able to do this again, even if it's in a way that's a little less refined than I would like. Not that my other videos are fine art or anything like that. Just I prefer to have that security of, you know, having a ring light, having my phone holder and all that stuff. I kind of became a little reliant on it. But hopefully this is alright. I'm also recording from a new phone, too. That's why I keep on looking in the wrong place, because the camera is farther down. I'm used to it being up here, and this one's down here. So I'm probably just, like, looking the top of your forehead this whole time. I'm sorry. But yes, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you sticking with me, even though I keep on disappearing and ghosting on you guys. That's my bad. If I don't speak to you again, I hope you guys enjoy your fall season. Stay safe out there. And yeah, don't forget to like and share and subscribe. And most importantly, love yourself. Okay, bye.